7 years ago, we featured published poet Alison Wong when she received the Robert Burns Fellowship at the University of Otago to write a book. This is what she said.
The novel is fictional and it is definitely made up, but I have interviewed a lot of people and done quite a lot of research, and I'm continuing to do that because I want, as much as I'm able, to give a reasonably accurate portrayal of life in those times.
The book, As the Earth Turned Silver, a cross-cultural story featuring Chinese and Pakeha characters, has finally been published and is now on sale in bookshops around the country.
The book took a long time to write, but that is the way I write. I can't write quality quickly like a lot of writers can, and I needed to research so much before I felt like I knew enough to write the story.
The research took Alison, a fourth-generation New Zealander, back to the days when her forefathers arrived to settle in the country.
Actual research took me right back well into the 1800s in China and in New Zealand, and went right through to the 1920s. I had to know what it was like to live in those times, how people ate, how they got from place to place, what their houses were like, everything about everyday life.
Alison took the stage at the conference to read excerpts from her book.
He's a Chinaman. That makes him worse than a Jew and maybe a little better than a dog. Maybe. Do you think they'd pick up a woman who is living with a white man, even a drunkard, and charge her with vagrancy? Do you think they'd take away her children?
It begins in Haining Street, Wellington's old Chinatown. And while the story is fiction, the lives of some main characters were formed by a lot of true stories.
I used a lot of true stories to make sure that the fictional lives and characters that I created seemed real. Yeah. So sometimes there are some incidents that really did happen to some people in a completely different way, and they've been reinterpreted into something that fits the story I was writing.
There are also some real-life characters such as Englishman Leland Terry, who while on an anti-Asian crusade around the country, shot and killed a disabled Chinese person in Haining Street in 1905.
Given the time period that I set the novel in, there's no way I could not mention him because it was such a huge case that affected the Chinese and which all of New Zealand were interested in at the time. So he comes into the story definitely as a minor character.
It's only every now and then that a first novel comes along that is of this kind of quality, and I think this is going to be the big first novel in New Zealand this year, in 2009. I'm in no doubt about it.
Apart from being published in New Zealand by Penguin, Alison's London-based agent has also succeeded in selling the book to other publishing houses in different countries. And what about languages?
Not many New Zealand novels are published overseas. One thinks of someone like Lloyd Jones and Mr. Pip, but this is very rare. So it's a tremendous accolade for Alison, and it's an indication of how good this novel is, that it's being published around the world.
It's great that people want to publish the novel, and it's great that they want to read it. I didn't write it specifically with any sense that it was going to do well. You just, as a writer, you just have to write what you write. And if it does well, it does, and if it doesn't, it doesn't.
As Alison Wong's book is launched, other Chinese Kiwis are already flying high. We caught up with real estate tycoon Don Ha and producer Sonia Yee.
Then I went direct.
He started selling watercress harvested from a neglected creek, and now he's selling multi-million-dollar homes. Don Ha's climb to the top of the real estate ladder is all about sharp thinking and the willingness to work harder than everyone else.
What to do. As human beings, we live in a free country. We can do what we're entitled to do, and we can become millionaires in our own right. So I guess if we make excuses, we're just making it for ourselves.
It's a well-known fact that this former refugee who started with close to nothing is now worth more than $60 million. And he's not about to stop.
I think the secret of being success on today's world is you've got to have to respect your business partners, respect your client, and respect the people, regardless of how much money they got, who they are. You just got to give them that respect and time.
I just used to feel really...
Another high flyer featured at the session is Radio New Zealand producer, playwright and actor Sonia Yee, who spoke of her quest to find her identity through the documentary she makes.
Being exposed to a lot of other people and feeling what their perception of me was, and that it wasn't necessarily a positive one just because I was Chinese, that's always really stayed with me. And for me, it's always the challenges that motivate me to keep on going because I'm really passionate about what I do.
A girl who struggled with anorexia for 20
Don and Sonia hope their life stories will encourage others to persevere.